The scene was of panic and despair, as a truck had knocked down an old man trying to cross the road. A man appeared to have tried to give the man CPR, but unknown to everyone watching, the man who appeared to have tried to be the first to help the man was just an opportunist, and stole the man's wallet. He waved to the crowd as if to say he couldn't do anything. The man walked down the street checking the wallet. It was full of notes and had a strange looking coin in it. Suddenly, as he looked up from the wallet, a car hit him, straight on knocking him dead. Crowds gathered around in terror, seeing the man's bloodied body underneath the car. The man's wallet fell out of his hand, and the coin rolled onto the footpath where a passerby picked it up. It was a habit they had whenever they found a coin. They picked it up as a lucky coin. They were walking home that night, and before they could cross the road to their home, a truck ran right over him. Later that night, the news was covering the story of the 3 accidents. The last victim was a man who taught high school students at a local school. The second victim was a man who was on vacation, and the first victim was a homeless man who met the description of a man who stole a wallet from a witch doctor just an hour before his accident. The witch doctor was angry at his curse working wrong. He had wanted the curse to end after the first man was killed, coming into possession of the magic coin, not kill 2 more innocent victims who had nothing to do with stealing it. Walking down the street, the witch doctor noticed something on the ground. It shone up on him under the streetlight. It couldn't be, he said to himself. A few seconds later, a truck beeped the horn, but it was too late. He was ran over and killed instantly. I had a long day, and even longer night, and was so tired getting home. I knew that my husband would be fast asleep when I got home. I crept upstairs quietly and got dressed for bed, then crept in, not to wake my husband. I was just about to go to sleep when I heard something. I thought it was my husband, up and about, but then I knew it wasn't, as I could hear his snoring. Thankfully, my husband didn't snore loud, but I could hear his faint snoring, which told me he was definitely asleep. I had no pets, so it couldn't have been a cat or a dog. I froze in my bed when I heard another noise. This time, it was in my room. I didn't move, and opened my eyes just a fraction. I could see a dark figure across my room wearing a ski mask. The figure was over by my jewellery. My heart thumped in my chest, and I felt like screaming, but didn't want to advertise I was here. I knew, of course, whoever it was had seen me, but I closed my eyes and pretended to be asleep, hoping they would leave and I could wake my husband and lock the door and call the police. I didn't want them to know I was awake for fear of some altercation where anything could happen. Whoever was in the room, it could be a crazy man or woman, they could be a serial killer or just some crazy addict. All these crazy thoughts ran through my mind as my heart beat faster and faster as I felt sweat fall from my brow onto my cheek. I continued to be asleep. I could hear footsteps on my carpet, but couldn't figure out which part of my room they were coming from. Suddenly, they stopped. I listened intently for more movement, but heard none. I hoped and prayed whoever was in my room were making their way downstairs now and would leave my house immediately. But I froze in fear when I heard a sinister voice in my ear say, "I know you're awake." Me and my friend were enjoying our weekend in my new house, which my mom and dad told me was my great-grandmother's house. It was an awesome house which reminded me of houses you'd see in those cool mystery movies, big and mysterious. But since we moved in, which was just over a month ago, my mom and dad told me not to go into a certain room downstairs. The door was locked, but I knew my dad kept the key in his drawer, as I saw him put it there last week. We entered the room and nothing looked out of place. It was just an empty room apart from a chair and a closet with stuffed birds on top of it. I then stood on the chair and picked up one of the birds. Suddenly, a woman who we never laid eyes on before started shouting at us. I wondered who was this crazy woman and what was she doing in our house. We both ran out of the room and locked the door, and I rang my dad right away, explaining what had just happened. He got mad at me when he came home, saying he told us to not ever go into that room. Then he asked me what the lady looked like. When I explained to him, me and my friend felt shivers up our spine when he had said we just described his great-grandmother. A few minutes later, he showed us an old black and white photograph of her. This woman was dead for over 50 years. The next day in school, we were in nature class, and my teacher said, "Well, class, today I have a very special guest to tell us all about birds." Me and my friend felt like we couldn't move with fear when we saw the lady who entered the room was my great-grandmother. Suddenly, everyone else in the class seemed to vanish into thin air, and it was just me and my friend and my great-grandmother. The classroom window smashed and loads of birds started flying around the room. Me and my friend screamed and ran home. When I got home and explained what happened in school, things got even weirder when my dad told us today was Saturday and there was no school. He then showed me a journal he had kept from my great-grandmother. It said, "My father was arguing with my mother again, and I am crying now because he shot my pet birds. The only thing I had to keep me sane in this crazy house." I then suddenly felt sorry for my great-grandmother and realised she wasn't dangerous after all. She was just a lost soul in this world that got angry at anyone interfering with the birds in her room. So now I am not afraid of my great-grandmother. I look at her stuffed birds and pray that in the other world she will soon find peace. And now I don't look at her as a crazy woman. I look at her as what I call her, the bird lady. Sam was reading a blog post on a website which was advertising an amazing deal on a hotel room. The room was only $1 to stay in for the night. He saw a photo of the room on the site. It wasn't fancy or anything, but he knew by spending the night in this hotel room, in particular in this city which he wanted to visit, for just a measly $1, could allow him to have most of his money for spending. There was one catch, but nothing that he couldn't handle. After all, he would be mostly sleeping. You might wonder why that would matter. I'll tell you why. The one condition is that the room will be streamed live on a website. It didn't mention the website, so Sam had no links to check it out. He didn't even know who has stayed there before him, or even if anyone has ever stayed there yet. When Sam arrived at the hotel, he met a man who greeted him with a pleasant smile and showed him into a room. He told him that the live stream will be starting in an hour. He thanked the man and then laid down on the bed checking his social media. An hour later he checked the laptop that was on a table over from his bed. He checked the viewer count. 1, 12, 36, 70. They seemed to be logging in very fast. He sat back waving into the camera at his audience, feeling like some kind of reality star. The views were past 300 now, 350, 400, 470, 500, 525, 590, 620. Then the views stopped at 666. Which he found kind of weird. Suddenly he heard a roaring noise, and then something attacked him from behind. Blood splattered all over the room after the frenzied attack. That's when the 666 Satanists licked their lips in satisfaction, watching Sam get slaughtered from the beast, knowing their pact with the devil worked. They had summoned the beast by using a spell from 666 of them to log on, and the number of the beast conjured the beast right when the 666th Satanist logged on. Afterwards, the laptop was taken from the room, and the police were clueless why a beheaded corpse was lying in the middle of a blood-stained hotel room. You know, getting a full 1 hour break at work should be easily given to all workers, but managers and owners seem to find ways around it. In every workplace I have been employed at, all my breaks have been disturbed, or even worse, I didn't get to have a full 1 hour break. Especially in times of economic downturn, it's always that guy at the bottom who gets the worst deal out of it all. We all must work more longer and have less breaks to create more profits for the owners. Only by the luck of the gods, which only happen ever so occasionally, will you get to have an undisturbed 1 hour break. A couple of months ago, I started applying for new jobs and got a new job straight away, which promised to give workers fair treatment. By fair treatment, they meant getting a full 1 hour break and giving you all the annual holidays that workers deserved, which was set up by the unions. When I spoke to the managers during my interview, they seemed nice and down to earth. All my past managers seemed bitter and grumpy, but these lot seemed to have a different outlook on things. The job role title was called a concierge for a residential building. The residential building was a brand spanking new one, and a lot of new building were being built to tackle the housing crisis. Anyhow, I fitted right into the job, and on my first day everything was going smoothly. On my first day, my manager told me that I don't decide when to go on my break, but my break times come to me. I honestly didn't know what my manager meant by this, but I was kind of busy to know more at the time. When I got inside the elevator to go up to the 9th floor, I couldn't believe it when the elevator had stopped working and was stuck on the 4th floor due to some mechanical issue. The company that built the elevators inside the residential building contacted me through the elevator. I was stuck inside and told me that a mechanic was on his way in an hour. Then my manager phoned me and he told me that he knew that the lift had broken down and knew that it would take the mechanic an hour to get here. My manager also told me that being stuck inside the elevator for an hour was my real break. Like my manager had told me before, that I don't get to decide when to have my break, but break times choose when to come to me, like being stuck inside an elevator. After the mechanic finally came and fixed the elevator, after an hour, I had a word with my manager. He thought nothing of it and didn't really care for what I had to say because I managed to have a full 1 hour uninterrupted break inside a broken lift. Then another time, I became stuck inside the stairs and the doors on the stairs aren't locked by a key but a fob system, so tenants need a fob card to get in and out of the stairs, just like how they need to get into the building. Basically, the fob card system had gone weird and all the doors which were connected to the system were all on lockdown. I had decided to use the stairs because I was scared of using an elevator after it had broken down, but now I was stuck inside the stairs and my fob card wouldn't work and let me out into the corridors of the building. My manager phoned me and told me that he knew the fob card system was down for an hour, and that hour being stuck inside the stairs was my official break. At that moment, I told myself that I was going to find another job because this was just crazy. I had never worked in a place where break times chose where and when a person gets to have a break. There was one time where I thought I wasn't going to get a break because nothing was breaking down or becoming faulty and trapping me inside a certain place in the building for an hour. For the first time in my life, I was happy and glad not to be getting a break. But when my shift was over and I got into my car, the car gate was down and wouldn't open for an hour. I was stuck inside the car park, which belonged to the building, and workers weren't allowed to park inside the car park, and my manager phoned me. He told me off for parking inside the car park, which only tenants could park in, and told me that it would take an hour for the mechanic to come and fix the car gate. That hour would be my break, even though my shift had finished and there was nothing else I could do but just wait it out. I couldn't find any new jobs because jobs were really drying up in my area. Now I had put in a month's holiday, which I needed, and it had been accepted. I decided that the whole of September would be my holiday, but on the last day of August, as I got into an elevator, because I needed to get to the top floor, because something had happened on the 9th floor, the elevators stopped working again on the 5th floor, and I was trapped once again. An automatic call-out from the computer inside the elevator made to the company that built the elevators inside the building, but they had bad news, and they told me that they wouldn't have any available mechanic for a whole month. Then my manager phoned me and told me that the month spent inside the elevator was to be my holiday, because not only do your breaks choose where and when you get to have a break, but even your holidays choose where and when you spend your holiday. I am still stuck inside the elevator and I am counting the days when this month will end. Also, a hatchet opens every 5 hours and food is given to me, and I have no idea how that works. After I get out of here, probably smelling of body odor, I am not working here anymore.